Hi, and welcome to another of a series of videos on how to use Ratings Central in Australia. My name is Cameron Chan, and I am one of the Ratings Central coordinators in Australia. My contact details are in the description box below. And once again, you are welcome to email me with any comments or suggestions for a future video. I will simply do my best to accommodate you over time. So if you had watched the last video, what we talked about was an introduction to Ratings Central and downloading and setting up Cantor for the first time. Okay, so we talked about setting it up, on your computer, entering your director details, creating an event, and putting a player, and touched on very briefly on the importance of the unrated prior. Today's video is we're going to talk a little bit more about these unrated priors, and specifically what are the Table Tennis Australia Rating Central Guidelines, because these will serve as the overarching methodology throughout these videos I am showing you. Then once we understand why we need these guidelines, I'll talk about entering and submitting results through Cantor and in Cantor, and then from that, doing a resubmission or a new event, or getting rid of the event as well. So this is what we are up to today in video 2. So let's get started. So what are the Table Tennis Australia Rating Central Guidelines? Well, through this link, which is also available on the TDA website through TDA policies, and clicking on TTA Ratings Central Guidelines, click on that. And then it will send you to this pretty little document here. If you are a director who has signed up since 2021, you will notice that before in 2020, that between 2020 and 2021, that everyone's ratings points went up by about 200. This is because over time, there was no consistent approach to using Rating Central in Australia. And finally, Jared and I had some time over the COVID-19 pandemic to rework some of these ratings and bring them up to speed. From that, we've developed this standardized guidelines so that all directors are encouraged to use these, or at least its overarching methodologies in their use of Rating Centrals in Australia. So, we talk about the purpose. So as we said, we're not asking all clubs in Australia to use Rating Central, but if they are going to use this Rating Central, then they should follow these guidelines as a starting point. All right. Of course, each state and territory association may have their own formulas for doing things, such as Table Tennis Victoria, Table Tennis South Australia have adopted their own policies at this moment in time on the 30th of December 2021, and perhaps other states may follow suit with their own methodology as well. But what we need to remember is that all of these individual methodologies are governed by this TTA RC guidelines as the umbrella. Okay, so there's a bit of background as to why of how the system operates. If you're interested to know about that, you're welcome to read it. You can send me an email to talk about them as well, but we're just giving you the high level need of what you need to know. Okay, so particularly in E, so as D, as I mentioned before, we are encouraging rather than mandating. And E is, without being standardized, we can create the perception that system is unfair and decreases confidence. Okay, so these guidelines are meant to be confidence building, as to ensure that we are not underrating or overrating certain players, and that all states are in agreement, or all clubs directors are in agreement of what a player's standard actually is. Okay, and we should always use a comparison system. Right, and then a bit of background as how it works, and etc. Now, for 3.2 is where we are really concerned about, because this is, if there's only one thing that you want to take away from these guidelines is, what do I start someone on? Then, okay, very simply, look at 3.2 and look at these bands. Okay, we look at state pennant fixture bands. So if it's a very high pennant, such as Croydon or even St George's or in New South, or even the Super League and SA, then they'll probably start people on about 1800 plus minus 200, or otherwise at the very very lowest, you would start someone at 800 plus minus 150. I do get the question, is that, okay, well, I've got multiple divisions where they would probably be starting at 800 plus minus 150. How can I differentiate between them? My counter argument would be is that in those divisions, are they all new players, or do they have existing Rating Central player data in Rating Central? And we usually find it is the latter rather than the former. Okay, so that there's always going to be at least quite a number of players who have played, and therefore it doesn't really matter what you start them on initially, right? As long as it is within these guidelines, it is broad enough. So this is why we're focusing on large standard deviation. It is broad enough, which is why in 3.2.3.3, the first number, as long as the lowest is 800 plus minus 150, if you just go up in increments of 100, 900, 950, whatever, and you go use plus minus 150, that is fine. That is not an issue. If you do get an email from me questioning your usage, if you just say that you're using 3.2.3.3, then I will ignore everything and carry on. Okay. So these are the main things, is that we can use 3.2.3.3 for as if you want a generalized approach, as long as you're following these guidelines. Or if you want something that is just hard and fast and simple, you don't even have to think, then 3.2.3.1 is good. We will talk more about state tournaments in a future video, as as that will come under the Zmello videos. Okay. For assistance, why do we use 800, 150 as the absolute lowest? Is that we need to take into consideration the 500 floor rule, which means that the following inequality must be satisfied. Initial mean minus 2 times initial standard deviation is greater than or equal to 500. So what we're saying is that the absolute lowest anyone can be in their range must be 500 as their initial starting point, right? Doesn't matter if over time that they deviate less than 500, we are talking about their initial starting point. Effectively, what we're saying is let the system figure it out. Don't try and game it. Okay, just let the system work all those calculations out. Okay, so that's why 800, 150 is the absolute lowest that you should go, because we want the lowest standard deviation used to be 150. All right, and if you want to use 1000 plus minus 300, then you need to consider, does that satisfy your inequality? Because we'll have 1000 minus 2 times 300, which is 600, and 1000 minus 600 is 400, which is less than 500. So that does not satisfy the inequality. You should have 1000 plus minus 200 or 1000 plus minus 250 at the absolute maximum. But I would very much stray away from that and just stick to 1000 plus minus 150. But that's just a personal preference. Okay. Annexure A also provides some additional examples of how to apply these guidelines and how to determine initial priors within your club. Okay. But what directors have mentioned to me is that they are very appreciative of a very simplistic approach to just applying a number, a recommended number, rather than needing to even think about a player standard, because they are confident that the system will work it out. Because, which is something I should have mentioned earlier, these are a range. So when we are starting someone at 500 plus minus 300, we are really saying that we are 95% confident that they are somewhere between 900 and 2100, for example, because we use the 2 times standard deviation rule. So 1500 minus 2 times 300 is 600. 15 minus 600 is 900. Okay, so this is what we are sort of looking at, all detailed within, but effectively, all if you want to take, if you want to take away the absolute minimum from this video, then you should only look at 3.2 and specifically refer to 3.2.3.1 as well as 3.2.3.3. And I have to stress that it is not to be interpreted as what we are saying a player's level is to participate in divisional grade. We are just saying it is initial starting reference when a player is submitted into Rating Central. Okay, so just remember that it is the system's initial calculation point, but only you know what best suits them. Okay, once again, we want to prevent the adverse effects of seedings in tournaments, rankings, and championships for previously stated reasons when directors were using different perceptions of how good a player is. Okay, so that is the guidelines. Feel free to send me an email if you would like further clarification.